Right then, something different for me on this channel. It's German this time. This little VW Beetle, which I bought from Andy Cole, aka VW Coco on YouTube. And you might have seen this car before. It's got a bit of end float on it. Okay, right, so he's up in the air, as you can see here. I've had him for a couple of days now. So let's just have a little look at what I've bought. So he's a sort of pre-67 look with the towel rail bumpers and sloping headlights on the front. He's a 1200 Beetle, so he's already got the sort of teardrop lights on the back rather than sort of elephant's feet or tombstones. He's in various shades of orange, which is some sort of choice, I guess. You see we've got a sort of a bar full of oil here, look, really black oil as well. I can only think it hasn't been done for a while. And I've taken the strainer off here, removed this nut, and that drains all the oil out of the system. Have a look under the engine bay here, 1200 flat 4. You've got the oil cap just on the side there. I need to adjust this belt because it seems to be running a bit hot at the minute because I think it's a bit loose on the pulley. And also I need to change the fuel lines. I've had a Beetle before, it set on fire, making sure it doesn't happen again. It was through this sort of fuel line perishing, and with fuel as it is nowadays, you've got to be dead careful. I've got to sort some wiring out on the inside of the light here. It's been a bit funky. I think the indicator works, but the actual headlight pod doesn't. So I might need to put some clips in there. Yeah, generally it's alright, to be honest. I'll show you some of the bits and pieces that I've bought. Start with these. These are the MP, like California style, or US spec, as they're called rather, sort of pre-67 lenses. They're going to go on it to replace these sort of amber type jobbies. I did it on the last Beetle as well, so I'll be doing it here. It's kind of 35 quid for two of them, which wasn't too bad. Still dripping oil there, aren't we? Still got some coming out. He's reasonably rust free for a Beetle under here. He needs a little bit of sort of rust treatment, but he's not too rotten. I think I have found one place that needs welding on the sill on the passenger side, but otherwise for a Beetle he's not too bad at all. Door's got a nice sort of open and shut to it, which is encouraging, I'm led to believe, from the Beetle scene. We've got our mineral oil that's going in, and a belt to go on the pulley. Just basic service items that you need to do. You see like a Heath Robinson bottle cut there to fill the oil with. And that is your all strainer gaskets and little washers that you may need to use. The inside looks pretty good on this car, to be honest. The interior is not ripped or anything like that, and the paintwork's really good on the dash. Right, moving forward here, I think I've cleared as much oil as I can out of here. So it was going to be the reassembly of the strainer. This is all cleared out. It had some gunk in it, but otherwise it wasn't too bad. Not as bad as I thought it was going to be for a car that had been sat for a few years. But yeah, cleaned a bit of gunk out of it and gave it a general clean up. Not going to town of it, like sort of doing the whole petrol cleaning side of things and making it shiny. There's your old gaskets. You get two new ones with the kit and the strainer lid. These are all your sort of nuts you get. Now this one I was a bit unsure of, because you've got one that actually goes in rather than one that's actually affixed to the body. I don't think that's supposed to be the case unless that's something specific to the 1200s. But these sort of washers here, I'm unsure whether I'm going to have to put these back in, because they weren't on the nuts when I took them off and it wasn't leaking oil. So sometimes it's better to go with what works rather than the conventional way. You need a 10mm socket here, look, to take those nuts off, and easily come off once they're on. Make sure you don't tighten them up too much as well, because you don't want to shear them off. As you can see here, so I've put the copper washer in with the middle strainer nut there, but the rest of them I've sort of left out because I found that it was tough to get these nuts back in again, and they weren't sort of grabbing in the way they should do. And the last one there I've had to put actually a rubber washer in because it was seeping oil out, which is still doing a tiny little drip here and there, but I will put another rubber washer in with that just to make sure that it doesn't continue to leak the oil out. But it doesn't really grab in very well, which I'm a bit disappointed with. I might need to further investigate this, but again, I don't want to snap any bolts or anything in the bottom of the engine. It's got our 20W30 oil, and there's our little Heath Robinson way of getting the oil back in. You've got to be dead careful with this, because once you pour the oil in, you can end up pouring it all over the engine bay, and there is a way that you can sort of stop this from happening, I'll show you there. Like if you just open the foil on the oil there to about sort of half, that stops it all pouring out too quickly. As you can see, I managed to get pretty much the right amount of oil out and into the engine, which I think is about 2 to 2.5 litres. I think you probably could put 3 in if you really want to do, especially like myself, if you've got a small leak happening. But our dipstick out, and our oil is now all nice and clean there, so not black as the night, it's actually quite clear, and that's exactly what we wanted to happen. So just basic things we've got to do on the bug, because he's been sat for a few years, just before we take him on an extensive drive. I just want to make sure, give this a fighting chance. Moving on to sort of the US spec lenses I'm going to put on the car. Now this particular pod, I had to break it out, the light lens, because someone had sheared the screw off inside, and one of the sort of pilot parts where the screw goes in was broken anyway. So there's no recycling this light lens, unless you put larger screws in it and run it as a ratty one, which I'm not prepared to do. But yeah, look at this. Someone rounded that off, trying to either get it in or out, and it was sort of halfway hanging out anyway. Lost a little spade connector here at the same time, which is I think from the inside of the engine bay on the earth. So we're going to have to rewire that back in again. But we'll cross all this as we're going through. It's going to take a bit of time to work our way through the small issues. Right, so show you some other little bits and pieces that I've done. I've now fitted the fuel line up, so we've got sort of cotton braided ones and a new belt on here. It's suitably sort of tight, but not too tight on there. But the cotton braiding I'm quite pleased with, because then that gives us a good chance to see whether the durability is going to be far better when it comes to potential fuel leaks. But you have to change these every year or so anyway, for how cheap that it is. I want to get a little sort of clip on here, that sort of vacuum advance. I don't want that sort of popping off, and then the vacuum advance of the engine is all wrong. Try putting a wagon clip in there and redoing the earth, but we haven't got much luck there. But yeah, other than that, I've bled the brakes as they should be, and this little bug is ready to go. So we'll catch you in everything next time. See you later.